This is the USS Midway, and coming up right now on TFL Aircraft Carrier, we're gonna find out how fast it is from 0 to 6 knots. All right, no. I'm here in San Diego where Mazda flew me down here to test drive the new CX-5 and compare it to a bunch of premium cars. Yeah, it sounds weird, but that's coming up right now. This is the brand new Mazda CX-5. Now, of course, it doesn't compete with cars like this Mercedes-Benz GLA, but Mazda has flown us here to San Diego to show us the dynamically much more premium cars like this BMW X1 do indeed compete with the Mazda CX-5. But there's more. What we're gonna do coming up right now is we're gonna compare cars that aren't exactly apples to apples. They're premium cars that are competing against kind of the mid-sized compact Mazda CX-5 segment. So another car that Mazda has given us is this one. It's the brand new Lexus NXT. This is a turbo. And finally, the last car we're gonna drive and compare to the Mazda is the Q3. Yeah, it may seem as ridiculous as comparing and reviewing an aircraft carrier, but just stay with us because you'll understand, and that will be fun, Andre. We're about to go drive really not competing cars, but cars that are very similar, but maybe the next kind of market level up, right?
Right, exactly.
And so why are we driving these cars? Why aren't we driving the RAV4 or the CR-V?
We're really pushing, we've always tried to make a really great driver's car, but we're really trying to push the whole car up to another level now. And everybody knows that our car drives better than a CR-V or a RAV4. They might have more cargo space or some other practical advantage, but from a dynamic viewpoint, there's no surprise that we're better than them. We're pushing into a more premium experience, and so we want to kind of put our cars head to head with what people understand as premium cars, like the BMW, Mercedes, and Audi, and really show that we're building cars at that level.
So what should I be looking for when I drive these competing cars?
So what we really focus on is the controllability of the car. We want the car to behave completely intuitively. Cars that a lot of car companies will focus more on objective metrics, acceleration times, or something like that. 0 to 60, braking distance. Right, and when you do that, you'll sometimes lose sight of what you're doing 99% of the time when you're driving the car, which is making these little inputs and expecting a little response from the car. And we really focus on making all that stuff completely intuitive, to the point where we're studying humans as much as we're studying cars, to understand what's intuitive to a human, right?
So we're looking at things like throttle response, braking response, steering inputs, right?
Driving position, right? Are you centered? Is it easy to get to the pedals? Is it easy to move between the pedals without lifting up your leg and that kind of thing? Right.
And you're saying that from your point of view, this car that we're in is as good or better than the cars that out there cost, what, $10,000 more? 10, 15, 20, yeah. All right, there's two things that are going on here, Andre. Mazda wants us to compare this car to their CX-5 because obviously this is a much more expensive car, so it's positioning their car in a higher bracket of premium cars.
Yes, and they're trying to go premium with their brand.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then the second thing is I talked to Dave Coleman, who is a true car guy and a real engineer, right? He knows every nut of the CX-5, and he's also a racer. He races the Miata, and what he's trying to accomplish is show us why the CX-5 is dynamically as good as, let's say, this Mercedes, or in some ways better. Well, let me show you what he said about the Mercedes.
Okay.
The Mercedes has quite well-known strange throttle response.
Yes.
When you tip in from a kind of city driving like we're doing here, you know, a light tip in from a stop sign is a pretty big hesitation before it does anything, and when it does start to accelerate, it's very uneven, and about 2 seconds after you hit the gas, finally it surges and takes off.
All right, Andre, you're in the numbers, man. Give me the numbers on this Mercedes.
Let me give you a little lowdown, okay? Yeah. This is a 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA 250 4MATIC, right? So it's an all-wheel drive model, just like the CX-5 that we're also going to be driving.
Yep.
This has a 2-liter turbo engine 208 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, 7-speed automatic, 26 mpgs combined, and the starting price on this 4MATIC is $35,775, which is actually quite a lot higher than the what, the $26,000 to $27,000 all-wheel drive Mazda.
Yeah, so it's about $10,000 more.
Yep.
It couldn't even be more than that. Now, one of the things that Dave wanted us to look for was throttle response, and of course he's promoting the fact that his car is normally aspirated because it gives you much more of a direct connection between your foot, the throttle pedal, and the engine, right? There's no turbo that has to spool up.
And you want to make a big power number and get a good fuel economy number on the test. A small turbo engine is good for that. It makes good peak power, and you don't use the turbo on the fuel economy test. If you look in the real world, you're doing all these really small inputs all the time, and a naturally aspirated engine gives you better response to those small inputs, so you feel more connected to the car. And so we're really focused on real world rather than catalog numbers.
But you said something interesting. You said that first you develop this car and then you look at those cars.
Right, right. So we really develop our cars from a human-centric viewpoint, focusing on what the people in the car need out of the car. How should it behave to please really our subconscious. We're really at this point tuning to the subconscious of the people in the car. And we benchmark these cars as a reality check after the fact. If we found something that we didn't like, it was too late to do anything about it.
We've got a little bit of room here. I'm going to floor it. Let's see what the throttle response is like. Let's see if I get turbo lag. Okay, here we go. It's floored. Nothing. All of a sudden, oh, it's weird. Oh, that is weird. So what happened was two things here. First, nothing. Then a lot of power, and then even more power. So if you were curving it, it'd be like boom, and then boom. Yeah. Let's try it again. Let's see if we get the same kind of response. It was relatively odd. All right, one more time. Nothing happening. Okay. I'm just flooring it. Nothing. Lots and more.
That's how turbocharged engines. That's characteristic of a lot of them, right?
Well, yeah, there's turbo lag, but I don't know why we're getting a double hump. So we're getting kind of a funky double hump where there's a lot and then there's even more. So yeah, dynamically, of course, a normally aspirated engine is going to be a lot more linear, a lot more direct connection between my foot and the engine and the kind of acceleration that I feel. Of course, turbos have their benefits. A lot of manufacturers are going to turbos because they're more fuel efficient. They can go to smaller displacement engines. And then where we live in Colorado,
that helps with altitude.
Yeah, they pack a lot more oxygen density into the cylinder, which helps mitigate the fact that we have less oxygen density, so we don't lose as much power. So we're big fans of turbos. Andre, we're in the Beamer.
The X1.
Yes.
Okay.
So, little disclaimer, guys, we're having to play by Mazda's rules, which means that we don't necessarily have a lot of time with these cars. You see these little wrist bands we're wearing?
We've been tagged.
We've been tagged. That means we're in this rotation, and we're trying to fit this entire review into this rotation with other journalists. So we're doing our best, and we're kind of breaking the mold, and they're probably not happy about it, but thank you, Mazda, for allowing us to do that.
Yeah, and for providing all these vehicles too.
Yeah. All right, Andre, do you have the numbers?
Yes.
All right, tell me about the BMW. This is the X1, the smallest of the X cars.
Yeah, and it's also a front-wheel drive based platform,
right?
Which is really interesting for BMW. But
we're in the X-Drive, right?
This is the X-Drive all-wheel drive model, and in fact, all these crossovers today are all-wheel drive models.
Good to know. So, Andre, tell me the numbers.
2-liter turbocharged engine.
Yep.
228 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, 8-speed transmission.
Most gears.
Most gears so far. Yep. 25 mpg combined, which is not the best, but it's par for the course. And starting price for the X-Drive, $35,100.
So it's a little bit more expensive. Let's see what Dave had to say about the driving dynamics of this, and then we'll test out what he had to say.
Okay.
The BMW thing that we notice is the steering wheel's a little bit off-center, which is one of those things we really focus on driving position. The boost response is quite good on that. It's not real laggy, but it's not linear. So the first half of the pedal travel, it kind of accelerates weakly, and then suddenly it just picks up and takes off. That's not a turbo thing. That's how they tuned it intentionally.
The German thing.
That's how Germans like their cars. That's what we found.
What do you think of the interior of this car?
You know, first thing that strikes me, it's a little bit more spacious than the others.
Yes.
And it's also, actually this interior is very airy because we do have a panoramic sunroof, and also a white interior, I think makes this interior a little bit more welcoming.
Yeah, you know, it's not black on black on black. I feel there's a sense of premium quality about this. BMW also does these very linear kind of shapes, giving a sense of width that the Mazda also has. But you know, BMW, of course, is known for building the cars from a driver-centric point of view, as most German cars are. But let's see what this throttle tip-in is like. Let's compare it to the Mercedes, and let's compare it to the Audi. All right, here, stoplight.
Here we go.
Stop sign, road is clear. Here we go.
Okay.
I would say that's fast and linear. There is probably the most turbo lag out of the cars that we've driven so far. So a little bit of turbo lag. Let me do it again. Oh, there's a guy walking. And we'll see. But
what I felt from the passenger seat in the BMW is that there was a little bit of lag, but it was also linear, not peaky like a Mercedes.
Yeah, so here we go. Lag, power, more power, and car shifts.
And then it kind of builds.
Yeah. The
acceleration builds gently, though.
Yeah, yeah. And the brakes, I gotta tell you, the brakes are the most confidence-inspiring out of all these cars. They're really direct. They're really linear. I feel like this is a car whose brakes are designed for track work and not just for street work.
I think BMW's been known for really good brakes in general.
All right, and I gotta ask you this. I mean, obviously, this is your baby, but is this car as good as those cars out there that cost $10,000, $15,000 more?
It depends on what your viewpoint is.
Yeah.
So if you want, in terms of comfort, quietness, controllability, absolutely. Most of those cars are faster. They have more power. If you wood it on the Autobahn, they're going to go faster than this is. But this has the kind of responsiveness that in the real world driving, most of the time you feel like it's got plenty of power. And in fact, a lot of times it feels like it has more power than those because it responds immediately when you hit the gas rather than
yeah, and I like how free revving it is too. It's got that kind of nice free revving sense, so it really revs up quickly. Alright guys, we're in the Lexus
NX.
Yes, T.
Turbo.
Once again, we're in the turbo, and as I pull out of here, Andrew, why don't you get the numbers so that we can give them the details of what this car brings to the party.
Well, the Lexus NX 200T brings to the party actually the most horsepower. 235 horsepower from this 2-liter turbocharged engine, 258 pound-feet of torque. You know what? 258 seems to be the norm because the Mercedes and the BMW also had the same torque output, but this one is a 6-speed auto.
So we've got less gears, more horsepower.
Yep.
How about MPG and price?
So combined MPG is 25.
Yeah.
And price is actually the highest, $36,485 for the all-wheel drive model in which we're in.
Once again, it's a base price, guys, so these are not
starting price.
So let's see what Dave had to say about this car in terms of its dynamic driving behavior.
The Lexus is a very comfortable seat.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. But the steering has a lot of damping in it. So when you turn into a corner, the turn-in actually I think feels quite good in there. But when you back off or adjust or start coming out of the corner, it's really damped and kind of viscous. And so you kind of lose clear feedback from
And you
that.
said the back end's a little floaty.
The suspension's a little floaty and harsh at the same time, which is a very difficult thing to balance, especially with the big wheels that you got.
So Andre, to me, this is probably the nicest interior of the bunch. It's certainly the squishiest seats, the softest materials. Everything in here is really premium. Everything feels like it's maybe one level above, in some ways, the other cars. Would you agree?
I would agree, and it's also a very different interior. It feels like the center console is floating really high, you know, everything is sort of elevated.
Lexus has really upped their game, and that's because Akio Toyoda decided that a lot of the cars that Toyota was producing were a little on the soulless side, and so he sent a memo out a few years ago saying, I want to see emotion, I want to see passion, and the engineers and designers responded. And whether you like it or not, these cars are a lot more emotionally interesting, right? There's that big spindle griddle at the front, and it's just a much more engaging car, right? The old Toyotas were, of course, and Lexuses are known for very great reliability, but not a lot of emotional panache, and now it's changed.
But I think this as I look at this interior, yes, it's very comfortable and very soft materials, but it's still a little bit, I don't know, clinical. Like everything looks like precision made, but it's not very inviting, if that makes sense.
I can see that. Let's see what the throttle response is like.
I'm really curious about this turbo.
Here we go, full on. Turbo lag, power. It's very similar to the BMW in some ways.
A little bit linear?
A little bit of turbo lag and a little bit linear. Not as good on the braking. The brakes are a little on the squishier side. They're more like the Mazda than the BMW. Once again, do one more time. Not a lot of engine note either. It's very quiet.
No.
I do like the driving position. I feel like I'm very comfortable in this car. I feel like everything is driver centric. That Toyota just ran a red light. I don't know if you saw that.
Okay, well, we're not gonna turn them in, are we?
Howdy. Yes, we saw you in the camera. All right, Andre, we are now in the Audi Q3. You have the numbers for that. You're the numbers man.
Yes, I do.
Right.
Of course I do. This also has a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine, like all these premium crossovers.
Yep.
This engine produces 200 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque, so not as torquey as the Mercedes.
Yep.
This is a 6-speed transmission and combined MPG 23.
So it sucks a little bit more fuel than the Mazda, but puts out more horsepower. Let's see what Dave had to say about this. Let's cut to that video right now.
The thing we noticed about the Audi the most is the steering response is not linear. So it doesn't have any delay in it. Right around center, it's very direct.
Yeah.
But you get a little bit off center and suddenly picks up and turns in harder. And I don't know exactly the root cause of that, but that's the kind of thing that we wouldn't let slip.
So, Andre, you're a bit of an Audi fanboy.
Yes.
He is.
I've been known to like my Audis and VWs too.
Yes, you are a little bit of the VW Group Audi fanboy. I gotta tell you, you know, these Audi interiors are some of the best in the biz.
You know what I like about the Audi interior?
What do you like
It's
about
a little bit more sort of simple and clean. It feels German, more German than like the Mercedes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's so black on black on black, dude.
There's some silver touches here.
Yes, there are a couple silver touches, but for the most part, this is a very serious interior.
Serious. It's not really playful.
No.
This interior is not playful. It's very straight-laced.
I do like the fact that you have the tachometer on the left, the speedometer on the right. You've got, you know, all your kind of interesting and important controls right in front of you, so it is very driver centric. Let's see what the throttle response is like. Once again, we got turbo. Here we go. Turbo lag. There comes the power. Whoa, right up to 7,000.
You know what?
What?
This felt slower than the Mercedes.
The Mercedes had more, it wasn't as linear, but it certainly had more pop.
Yeah, and it just kind of sets you back.
Yeah, this is a little bit less pop to it. But it does have a really good engine note, and it does feel really well screwed together. It feels very solid, Andre.
How about the driver centricism? Is that a word?
Yes, it is very driver centric. Everything I see is dead straight in front of me. The wheel is nice and fat. It feels like I can take this car by the scruff of its neck and kind of toss it around. So we're in the Mazda now, and Andre, I actually got to drive this Mazda by myself. So why don't we cut that video, because they're really making us go on this loop.
Well, it's very precise. This is scientific as far as schedule is concerned.
So how does this car drive? Well, it's pretty good. I mean, it revs all the way to 6,000, which is pretty good for a mid-size crossover. It's very light and it's very agile. It's on its tippy toes. Mazda says that there's a torque vectoring system that makes it much more smooth around corners. I'm about to take a roundabout, so let's try it out and see just how smooth it is going around this roundabout. Basically, it sets power. Basically, it sends power to the wheel that needs it and takes away power from the wheel that doesn't need it. And in other words, it can shift power from left to right, making for a much smoother entry and exit out of the corner. You know, without having a back-to-back drive with the old model, that's a hard one to kind of feel by the seat of my pants. So I'm going to leave that one open right now. So how does a Mazda compare to more premium cars? I think from the interior, it certainly competes. Mazda has done the best job of any of the major auto manufacturers in making this car feel expensive and premium on the inside. Everything I touch is soft. There's a sense of quality about it. There's a sense of just everything has been sweated, the little details.
Yeah, we did a lot of work, detail work to this engine to make it rev up more quickly. We did some changes to the combustion chamber, to the piston, to make it more knock resistant, and that lets us tune it so it, like when it downshifts, it revs up so quickly and so smoothly. The downshifts are shorter and smoother than they were before.
Of course, the problem is that oftentimes when people buy premium cars, they're not buying just the car because it's better, they're buying the badge. So if you want a BMW, or if you want an Audi, or if you want a Lexus, you're buying it because it says something about you. And I know Mazda's kind of trying to move into that kind of premium space, but that's where the rubber hits the road, because people don't necessarily define premium just because the interior is premium. They define premium because the brand is premium, and that's going to take years to accomplish for Mazda. You can't just become a premium brand overnight. And yeah, maybe there is some white space between, let's call it that, kind of mainstream automaker and the premium automakers, and they're trying to fill that space. And maybe there's enough of a market for a company that only sells, well, they have about 2% of the world's auto market, which is tiny in comparison to cars like Toyota or GM or even Ford. So maybe if you're a niche manufacturer, which is what Mazda considers themselves, then there is enough space to be kind of that, let's call it entry-level premium. But will Lexus buyers or BMW buyers cross-shop this Mazda with an X1? I don't think so. I think if you want a BMW or you want a Lexus, you're going to go for a BMW or for a Lexus. Power is the sledgehammer of the dynamic world. Mazda's trying to say we have a much more all-around car. It's much more of a scalpel. But
that's hard to define and feel. Yeah,
it's hard to define and feel, and that's why they put all these cars together to show us the difference. But you know, I'm a big guy. I like turbos and I like power. And yes, the Mazda is a much more kind of complete entire car when it comes to its driving dynamics and its performance. But there's just something that puts a huge smile on your face when you floor it, and even though there's a little bit of turbo lag, that turbo kicks in, the afterburners light up, and you get pushed back in the seat.
Yeah.
And the Mazda does that, don't get me wrong, but it does it to a point. As always, this is Roman
and Andre
saying thanks for watching, guys. Remember, check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course real-world reviews. And don't forget to click over here and watch our review of the Mazda CX-5. See you guys next time. Thanks.